We've got more people joining, Shining happy faces. It's good to see you all tonight, today, whatever time zone you're in. Okay, guys, I would go down Joseph's biography, but in prep for this call, I went and looked it up, and I pretty much give up. It's so long. He has done so much, hit every fascinating field there is, and he has a life story that is literally written for, one of those classic fiction books that will last forever kind of life story. So I'm going to let Joseph launch in and tell you a little bit about himself and his background, and then I've got questions. So Joseph, and Joseph is, first and foremost, he's a fellow narrator. He's been doing this for ages. He's a podcaster, and he is our Elvis Presley in the Cup of Joe Christmas variety show. So we all know and love Joseph already. So Joseph, thank you for coming on the show.
Daniela, thank you for the invite. I've been so excited about meeting you. It's kind of interesting on social media. We have a tendency to talk a lot in writing, but we don't speak to each other in our voices. And this is what we're all about, right? Using our voices. My story is really kind of interesting. I was born with a paralysis of my right arm. I can't use it. I can't open it. I can't raise it above my head. And I've had to deal with that most of my life. So as a child, as a very little boy, my mom reminded me, she's Italian. She's passed away just not too long ago. But she reminded me that I used to get up on the tables when we would go into these dining areas in those days, and I would sing and dance all over the place.
How old were you?
And I may be 3 or 4, she said. She has some pictures that she used to share with me. But the problem is when you're really small, people don't notice differences. But as soon as I became a little bit older, that's when the children became kind of bullies to me. And they didn't let me play in the games, and they wouldn't let me participate in any of the sporting events because I only had one arm. And so I became very shy and introverted. Now, my parents were great. My dad was brought up in an orphanage. And so he was the kind of guy, hardworking guy, joined the military. But he taught me something early on. He said, "Son, I'm going to just tell you a fact." He said, "No one is going to feel sorry for you. No one. You're going to have to do something about your life." He says, "And that's all I can tell you, son." And he taught me how to play baseball. He taught me how to play basketball. He was a great athlete. He taught me how to play ping pong, pool, you name it.
So they never reaffirmed the messages that you were getting from the idiot kids. To them, they made it very clear you are equal and as good as anyone.
That is
I love
correct.
that.
And so the shyness, though, caused me to withdraw within myself. So I would go into my room and I would imitate voices that I heard on TV. And the radio was very popular back then as well. So I would imitate all these voices. And I would just do them. My dad bought me one of these reel-to-reel tape recorders, and I would record myself on those. And I would just try, like Ed Sullivan and all these different characters that I would try to, portray and make sound like. Well, eventually, I became an impressionist. And I did nightclub work where I went and actually did stand up, and I did, And so I really started doing a lot of impressions, which is why I got into voiceover and became a professional voiceover artist, because I had a pretty good ear and I could pick up on these things.
So wait. Sorry to interrupt. So were you, so what year around was this when you were in nightclubs?
Let's see. I think I came out of my shell when I hit right after high school. I was pretty shy in high school, and I didn't go to my prom or anything. But I wasn't bullied in high school, so that was good.
So were
But I
you
was
in
just
nightclubs
shy.
in like the 60s when they were really, really cool?
Yeah. Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
behind
I
the
graduated.
microphone, like the whole stand up behind the microphone, people drinking
Yeah.
cocktails.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so,
Wow.
eh, yeah. And then I had a friend, and we formed an act similar to the Smothers Brothers. And he was the straight guy, and I was the funny guy, and I would do all the impression and the funny voices. So then we started traveling into these really nice clubs that we worked and made a lot of money. Went on a battleship a couple of times that was harbored there I used to live in Florida. So this was in Pensacola, Florida. It was a Navy base, and we went on the ship and performed there. So we're called the Crabone Brothers because he was Italian, like myself. So we call ourselves the Crabone Brothers. And we made a lot of money just, going to junior college. I made a lot of money on the side during the weekend. So
How
that's
did
my,
you feel? How did you feel doing that? Was it like, because it doesn't sound like this was like, oh, this is my life dream. It sounds like this is, I mentioned to you before the call, the thing that fascinates me about you is it feels like something catches your eye and you listen to the spark inside yourself and follow it, but you don't define yourself completely as that. And then you just move on to the next thing. Is that fair?
well, I love this quote by a guy by the name of John Lund. And here's what he said. And I share this with my university students all the time. He said, "Don't ever destroy a person's dream. Reality will do that for you."
Mm.
And I'm a dreamer. People told me so many times, "You'll never do this, and you'll never become a professional actor, and you'll never become this, and you'll never be able to play tennis," and those type of things. And I got my professional certification in tennis with Dennis Vandermeer. I actually traveled to South Carolina and got my professional certification in tennis. I don't like the word can't.
So
I
how
don't
does it
like.
feel in your body and your mind when, because the reason this fascinates me is because I haven't been that person. I've listened to the cautionary tales. I've dabbled, but never been able to take myself seriously on any of my dreams because I believed, who do you think you are? Right? I mean, narration is, this is it, but I kind of was forced into it by life, or I wouldn't have backed myself. So, what is the thought process that goes through your mind when you decide, despite somebody saying you can't do something, to, because you've made successes out of a multitude of careers, whereas some of us have taken a year to try to do it out of one. What's the process in your mind that makes you take that leap and have the confidence in yourself?
Okay. It's my faith. Okay.
Okay.
I have a strong faith and religion about I believe in God, and I believe that God gave me these talents to share with others. And that is my driving force. My second thing is it has to be a cause that is worthy to me and to others. I want to help. I always want to help because I realize being handicapped like I was, that I need to give back now. I need to give back. And I love to give back. I love to teach. And I taught high school for 30 years. I've taught at the university now for 22 years. I just love to give back. But anyway, that's what I believe in, Daniela. I want to give back. I want to be able to help people. Anybody who reaches out to me, I'm there to help. That's my philosophy because I just feel like I've been so blessed now, right?
I love
I'm
the
past
fact.
I'm past that handicap problem. I'm past it. Well, I think we all have to reassert the idea that we believe in things because obstacles get in our way. But
Yeah.
the thing about it is, if we believe in whatever we believe in, we can go around those obstacles. Like you mentioned, there's so much support system that I have, my wife, my grandchildren, And that's what I look at, the blessings, the great things that happen in my life. I do not try to dwell on the negative. I just can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got, I sense in you what I'm trying really hard to get, but I tend to have a very scattered personality, a strong inner core. Because no matter what job you take or career you do, you're Joseph. You've got guts because you know you can back yourself. You think you got that from your parents?
I think I got it from both my parents. My mom was a professional singer, and my dad was the athlete. But my dad was brought up in an orphanage, so he had a really tough time in life.
Hmm.
And so I think that's why he encouraged me to say, nobody's going to feel sorry for you. Get out and do something, make something of yourself. And I had to. I just had to. I wasn't going to be a bricklayer with one hand. I wasn't going to be a blue collar worker. So what I have to do is get an education and do something else. I just knew that.
And so what part of your personality did you have to overcome? We all have our things.
My shyness.
How are you completely over it, or do you still battle it?
Oh, no. My students, when I tell them I was shy, they don't believe it. They go, how could you be shy? I go, well, everybody goes through these transitions in life, guys. And so we have to go through those and then grow from them. So no, I'm not shy anymore.
So what's the journey from each career to another? So you're doing with your friend, you're doing the road trips and everything.
Mm-hmm.
What was next? What was after that?
Yeah, next was the junior college where I was majoring in recreation, okay? Because my dad, but a really smart guy who was the basketball coach at the junior college said to me, I think you need to try something else. Why don't you try, I hear you're in a drama class there in college. Why don't you try that? And so I did. And I got out of recreation and I became a theater major.
Do you realize how unusual that is?
I know.
And there was never a question of, oh, I can't do that.
No.
Really?
The first play I tried out for, I got the lead. Mm-hmm.
And did you love it? Was
Loved
it love at first sight?
Loved it. Yeah, I loved every minute of it. Yeah, it was called Visit to a Small Planet by Gore Vidal. And I played General Powers. I remember it. Mm-hmm.
And so where did your journey take you from there? How long did you do that?
Well, I went all the way through junior college. And I was the first person at the junior college where they came to me just towards graduation, and they were going to do a musical called Silk Stockings. And I had background in singing as well. So the department came to me and said, will you direct our first show in our new theater? I said, what? I said, I'm just in junior college. They go, we think you can do it. And I said, well, I've never directed anything in my life. And they said, no, we want you to do it. And I directed my first major production in a junior college with a packed house of Silk Stockings. I didn't even know how to direct. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was successful, I guess.
So you stayed, because you've diverged off the path into completely different careers. So when was the next divergence into something completely different from the performing and everything?
Okay. So what I did is I moved from junior college and got a scholarship to Brigham Young University. And when I got to Brigham Young University, I was a junior going in, and they gave me an assistantship to work with one of the professors there. And that professor was the one that taught dialects.
I want to hear about this. I don't even know what a dialect specialist is.
Right. Anyway, he taught dialects, accents, whatever. Well, the difference is this. Accent is what everybody has wherever you live. If you live in England, you have an English accent. But a dialect goes with the demographics of where you live. So, for example, I grew up in Florida. Let me just give you a quick example. And so in Florida, there's just a mix of different ways that people speak Southern. So I would meet people, for example, and they'd say, "Hi, how are you? It's good to see you." And I'd say, "Oh, it's nice to see you too." And we didn't have any real dialect because my dad was in the military, so he traveled everywhere. But then we'd have a guy that lived right down the street from us, and he maybe wasn't as intellectual or smart, but he would work on cars, like automotive cars, and his whole driveway would be full of cars. And he'd come over to my dad and he'd go, "Hey, I just live down the road there, and I fix cars. So if you ever need your car fixed, you come on over. I mean it anytime you want." And I thought, wow, that guy's interesting, because other people I know from the South in my same city, they don't sound like that. And they all sounded a little different. Well, that's where dialects come in. But they had
Can you
Southern accents.
recognize, is that what a specialist does? They can recognize different dialects from different
Yes.
regions, or
Mhm.
actually perform them as well?
They can do both, because
Wow.
the guy that taught me, he was taught at the Sorbonne in Paris. That's where he
Wow.
learned it from. Yeah, Preston Gledhill was his name. I'll never forget him as long as I live. But this guy was probably in his late 50s when he was teaching us. And one day we challenged him. It was funny in the class. We said, "Mr. Gledhill, can you do dialects?" And he goes, and he was real proper. And he goes, "What did you ask of me?" We said, "Well, can you do dialects?" And all of a sudden, this guy who's in his 50s just whips out every dialect accent you can think of. Everything. We're talking about Irish, Scottish, Polish, everything in about 5 minutes.
I've seen those. Have you seen a few people they go viral? They can do that. That's
Yeah,
astounding. But
yeah.
do you think that's a learned trait, or do you think that's something you're born with?
No, I think you have to learn that.
You have to. Okay, now I've got a question. I don't want to miss the audience questions. Anna Clements wants to know, do you have a favorite voice that you do?
I don't. I don't, because I enjoy doing a variety of character voices. And, it's not about the voice, it's about the storytelling. And that's what I love doing. I love doing the storytelling. And then the voice accommodates the storytelling to make it more interesting for my listeners, or for my audience that I'm performing for as an actor.
So what is your process then? Do you set the accent in markup while you're looking at the manuscript before you go in, or do you just naturally fall into it while you're doing the character as part of your character work?
No, I do what we call mapping. If I have multiple characters, like the first book I did a few years ago had 33 characters in it. It was a Western that I did. It was female and male, and all of kind of English people were in it, and cowboys and everything. And I did a mapping, meaning all I did was take little excerpts of the voices that I heard in my head for the character. And like one of the characters in here is, she's Scottish, and I had to think, but she also runs a brothel. And so I had to think what she would be like. She'd be seductive, but yet Scottish sounding or whatever. And
I can't picture
I
you
have a couple of
a
samples I'll
seductive
do.
Scottish woman.
Yeah. Well, let me do Bertha for you real quick. Okay. Okay. This is Bertha from that Western. "Well, hello, Sheriff. Who's your friend?" "Mrs. Bertha, this is Nathan Ryder. He's the owner of this hotel." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Ryder. Have you boys come to visit some of my girls?" Nathan shook his head. "No, ma'am. I've asked the sheriff to come with me so that we can make you aware of some problems we're having." Bertha's face clouded over. "What problems?" Nathan looked at Jim, who shuffled his feet. "Well, the biggest one, Bertha, is your girls are violating a city law by being on the balcony indecently dressed." Bertha looked back, forth between the two men. I see. And what are the other problems? Nathan cleared his throat. Well, they aren't problems yet, ma'am, but I want to head off potential problems before they become real problems. It is against hotel policy for the guest of our hotel to conduct, shall we say, carnal business for profit out of our rooms. In other words, my girls and I can sleep here, but we can't make any money here.
So, Robin Williams that did Mrs. Doubtfire.
I know, that's where I got it from.
That's as good as that. I love that.
Yeah. So
that's really good. That's fabulous. So I take it you're happy to take books with accents on. You don't flinch at all when they say.
Oh no, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and you actually enjoy them.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, where can you? I've been an actor for over 40-something years. When do I have an opportunity to play all those roles at the same time?
Yeah.
Never. Right?
Yeah.
What an opportunity.
And the playing keeps coming up as a theme from all the guests, all the coaches, the love of the craft and the playing in the booth, that spirit that you bring into your work is, so what did you do after you did? So you studied the dialects, and then what did you do?
I mean, how I got into voiceover or how I moved on to other stuff? Or
yeah, because I saw your website and there's like 30 different careers on there.
Yeah, right. Well, my mom was a professional singer, so I always wanted to sing. And so I started that a little bit in junior college. So when I got into the university, I decided to take voice lessons. And there was a guy that was teaching opera. His name was Ray Arbazu. And he saw me and he said, you know what? He said, why don't you come in my studio and let me teach you how to sing opera? I said, well, where did you hear me sing? He said, well, I saw you on stage one time in a play. And so I went in and he taught me how to sing opera. And he goes, you know what? You could be an opera star in our department. I go, I don't like it. I said, I don't like it. You just stand around. You don't do anything. And he goes, well, you could do opera if you wanted to. So that was kind of an exploration. And then I thought, well, I want to improve my musical theater voice. So there was another guy, and I talked to him, and he said, yeah, I'll teach you. And he taught me how to do musical theater.
See, I'm noticing the journey is the little boy at home in his room imitating voices. You took that imaginary world and you capitalized on it pretty well.
I did.
Yeah. So you did musical theater then?
Professionally. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that exciting?
I ended up going on and doing regional theater, and I worked with Broadway actors and played opposite them in major roles. Yeah.
That's a life I imagined I was going to have after I lived in New York in the Fame Academy. So you did Broadway, you did musical theater.
Didn't do Broadway, did off Broadway.
But you worked with Broadway actors.
I did work with Broadway actors, I did.
Mm-hmm. And then where did you go? When did you meet your wife in all this?
Well, I met my wife in Florida. She's 5 years younger than I am. So I robbed the cradle a little bit because you can imagine, right? And we lived in the same town. This is the most interesting. We lived in the same town, but we never met each other because we were 5 years apart. So finally, I was a radio broadcaster for many years as well at a rock station. And I had my own show. And she walked in with her friend that knew one of my friends that worked at the station with me.
How old were you at the time?
Let's see. I think I was early 20s when I met my wife, early 20s. And she walked in and it was love at first sight. I fell in love with her. It was really interesting. Yeah. But you mentioned Elvis Presley, so I have to tell you the story. It's so interesting. We went on our first, gosh, I hope this isn't me.
I think you've got a cell phone somewhere. Just ignore it.
Yeah.
It probably is like a family emergency. I'm like, just ignore it. Famous last words.
Yeah, there we go. Anyway,
Elvis
so
Presley, love at
yeah,
first
we went
sight.
on this date. We went on this date, and my my friend knew I did Elvis Presley because I was doing impressions at that time as well. So he said, "Hey, Joe, why don't you do your Elvis? You know, whatever." So I turned to my wife, who then was my first date, and I said, "Hey, do you want to hear me do my Elvis?" And my wife goes, "No, I don't think so." And I said, "What? All the girls love me to do Elvis." She goes, "No, I don't think so." And you know what impressed me the most about that was that she liked me for who I was, not for my voice and funny voices I could do or Elvis Presley, just for who I was. And she also didn't worry about my handicap.
Yeah. But
That
do
was not,
you do you think that the more comfortable you were with it and confident in yourself, the less other people noticed it? Or do you
yeah,
think people are
but
still
on a date,
jerks?
how could you not notice it when you're sitting next to somebody and obviously somebody's put their arm around you or something, and I have to go to the other side of you, and you know what I mean? So it
Okay,
was
so
clear when I started dating.
this is a question, and follow my mind here. I'm not equating the two things, but I
Mhm.
wonder how if it is a thing. I read somewhere, and these I swear these all relate. I had I wasn't ironically fat, but I thought I was most of my life. So I had like issues with dieting most of my life. And I heard something somewhere, a joke on one of those horrible sitcoms, oh, date a fat girl because they're used to having to like have a better personality and do everything more and overcompensate because nobody ever likes them. And I think that a big part of my personality is because of me being conscious of the way I looked and the way I thought people would see me, even when I was thin, I thought I was fat. Um, I think a big part of my personality is because of that, because I did overcompensate. Do you think that your bravery and a lot of your strength and a lot of your courage comes from not overcompensate, comes from
I know.
compensating for, because it's a cruel world, people are jerks,
Yeah.
small people that don't know any better, they're afraid for themselves, so they judge. Do you think that that informed your life and still informs your life?
Yeah, I was called some pretty bad names when I was a kid. Crippled orangutan, and I don't, I even had girls at one time would go, "Ooh, don't touch me. You have cooties." And yeah, I went through it. I went
Yeah,
through it. And yes, do I compensate now? Yeah, but I compensate in the way of helping. I
yeah,
always want to reach out and help people. It isn't about me. I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about other people. When I teach my university classes, it's about my students. It's not about me.
but that's a strength, that's a strength of character. I know you, it doesn't come from you as about you, but that's what makes it strong. The leaders of the
Yeah,
world, Gandhi, and it wasn't about them. They were doing it for they
right,
had enough inner reserve that they were spreading that good energy. And that's when you reach great strength.
right. I love people, Daniela. I love people, all kinds of people, right? I've learned to accept all kinds of people in this world. And I just think we all have a purpose in this life or we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, and I think that I I believe because I believe in energy, good energy, bad energy, and that strength of energy, that genuine, heartfelt liking people, loving people spreads. And then I don't think in small ripples, you might not even realize that they go off. And especially if you're a teacher, because I know my mother had kids. I know my mother had students walking, used to be horrified, walking up in the grocery store going, Mrs. Acitelli, you changed my life. I was like, oh God, here we go again. I bet you get a lot of that with your students because teaching and caring, you're changing people's lives.
Some of the most beautiful letters I've ever received are from a student of mine who became a well known attorney. and said to me that I want to thank you for teaching me drama because that's why I became attorney. I'm going, really? I'm thinking, really? And
Yeah,
I
I
had
worked with lawyers. I could see that.
yeah, but I had a real touching experience one time. I had a student stop me. I was in like a supermarket, and she came up to me and she said, "Oh, Mr. Batzel, how are you?" I said, "Oh, thousands of students." And I'm going through my brain, oh my gosh, who is this person? I should know you. Were you in a drama class and everything? She goes, no, I wasn't. She says, I was in one of your English classes and I sat in the very back. But every day you came by and said hi to me. And how are you doing? And I said, were you really quiet back then? She goes, very, very quiet. And she said, but you were always nice to me. I didn't realize that at the time. I was just trying to be a teacher and care about my students. But I said, well, how are you doing? And she goes, oh, I'm fine. And she talked about getting married and her children and all those things. But that's what makes it, I won't get emotional,
Yeah,
but
but planting seeds, it
that's what
changes the
makes it all
world.
worthwhile. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So the big question,
Hmm.
how did you end up narrating books? How did you
Okay.
end up on, because that's a different path altogether. People
It's a
don't know
different
from
path. Yeah,
voiceover.
it is. It is. It's kind of a cool story because when I was doing voiceover, and I was very fortunate and very blessed. I did over 150 voiceover jobs in my career, and all kinds of things, right? Documentaries, and I did ads. I did everything. And one of those, I did a little audiobook for a guy, and he, said, hey, you really did a pretty good job on this. I said, thanks. And he sold some copies of it. Well, then all of a sudden I had some downtime, which isn't very often for me because I'm so busy, but I had some downtime and I thought, you know what? I think I'd like to do audiobooks. And so I got on ACX, right? And somebody said, hey, you ought to try ACX. And I thought, what is ACX? So I got on it. And that's where I was able to nail down that Western, that little excerpt that I just did. And he
30
was
was that the 30 character one?
33 characters.
Your
Yeah.
first book.
My first book, 33 characters. This guy really liked my voice. And he was a preacher and he wrote this Western, and it was a Western romance, but it was a Christian Western romance. It went with my values, my principles. So we talked and he says, hey, will you do the book for me? Well, Daniela, it took me 86 hours to produce this book because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was trying to do all these characters and I was listening to myself and I go, oh my gosh, that's horrible. That doesn't sound like a girl. And and so I just had to redo it over and over. I didn't know anything about editing or mastering. And so I just kind of bowled my way through it. And thank goodness I had a super editor and proofer that I had met that someone recommended. And she did all the master work and all that stuff and made it sound really great. But 86 hours, I logged it in. And I thought, I'm going to be the worst audiobook narrator in the world because I can't spend 86 hours on every book I've ever done. And so then I, I got to know Nancy Peterson, who I love and adore, and people like Emma, who's in our Utah audiobook narrator group, and BJ Harrison and all those guys. And I learned a little bit from them. And then I started studying like crazy.
Yeah.
I just started studying and going over some things and also meeting some audiobook narrators and coaching. And I just wanted to become the best I could be in audiobook narration. And, we're 20 something books and into a little more than that now. And, the rest is history. But I love it, but I just don't have the time to do it full time. So
Yeah.
I do it part time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the love. I think it's the love of it
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
common thread. And you never know. I know people, I tried when I first started narrating to do other jobs as well, because you hear you have to have a survival job. It was the hardest thing in the entire world because I couldn't switch my brain. I'd come home from the other thing, I'd be exhausted, and I couldn't get the mental focus to. So, how do you do that? How do you get yourself to concentrate and protect the time to narrate when you've got so much else going on?
Well, if there's one thing I've learned in the industry of acting is how to focus. I can
Yeah.
just turn it off and I can turn it on. Film acting taught me that, right? I could be in a
Yeah, because you're
trailer for
sitting
eight
around.
hours
Yeah, you have to go
exactly
on.
and have to go on the set and boom, right? Cry at the gravestone, Joe. Sorry, that's what you got to do. 8 hours, I've been in a trailer. But now, boom, focus, go. That's where I
You're
learned it.
right. You're right. Oh my God, you're right. You just blew out my 5-year excuse. Yeah, exactly. Good
Yeah,
point. And you do the podcasts as well. Were
I
you
do.
already doing audiobooks? No, you've been doing the podcasts for 2 years. What gave you
Right.
that idea?
Well, I just listened to a few podcasts and I said to myself, I've got to find a niche because some of them I really liked and some of them I thought they're kind of boring, right? So
Mhm.
I thought all the people I've met and networked over the years, both in the industry, students I've taught, there's got to be stories out there for every one of them. So my niche was I interview ordinary people that have done extraordinary things in their life.
I love that.
That's
I
my
love
niche.
that.
And guess
And
what? That every one of you could be on my podcast. That's what
what
I
is,
love about it.
they want to know, the audience, your audience wants to know, Joseph. Actually, Anna wants to know, what is the
Okay.
podcast called?
It's called How Did I Get Here?
Very apropos. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to know, how did I get here? Okay, very good. I
How
love
did I
that.
get here?
But then it goes back to the key. The thing I noticed about you is you come from a place of gratitude and you see the extraordinary in people, because a lot of people walk right by the extraordinary every day of their lives, and they wouldn't recognize extraordinary if it hit them on the head unless they'd like maybe won 20 awards or were Beyonce or something. And some of the greatest art, don't you think, has been written about or come from the extraordinary lives of normal people?
Well, we're all normal, right? We're all everyday people.
But you're
What we
not
do,
normal, Joseph.
well,
You've had like 30 successful careers. I hate to break it
but
to you.
I
You're
know,
not
but
the guy next door.
I know, but I try to be the guy next door. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. I've had my day in the sun, so to speak, right? I've
yeah,
had the notoriety, and some of it's okay, but after a while, it embarrasses you. You know what I mean? I mean, I've been in the TV Guide and whatever, and people go, "You were in TV Guide," and I go, "Well, that's no big deal," but it was back then, years ago, if you were in TV Guide and your picture was in there, because I did a PBS film, right?
yeah.
So, but you know what? It's not about notoriety. When you die in this life, all right, nobody's going to care how many movies you made, how
Yeah,
many audiobooks you did. They're going to care about how you treated people.
yeah. It's that
That's what it's about.
saying, people are going to
That's what it's
remember how
about.
you made them feel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's what it's about. How you treat people.
yeah.
Nobody's going to sit or stand at my funeral and go, well, let's talk about Joseph's audiobooks or how many roles he played. No, no, they're going to talk about me. And I hope it's positive and I hope it's good and I hope it's kind. And, that's what I want to leave behind is my legacy, not how many audiobooks I.
Don't you think that, like, when you see the world, because you give out love and gratitude, you see the world as, who was it, Einstein that said, you either live in a harsh world or a kind world, and whichever one you think you live in is the one you get. I totally mangled that. But your perception of the world. And I bet your grandchildren and your children are like that, aren't they? Because they were raised by you.
They're very giving. They're very loving. Yes.
Yeah, because we create the world, don't we? If we think it's horrible, it's going to be horrible. Yeah, so you've created a wealth of, I mean, can you watch yourself? Do you have anything on video where you can watch your days in the clubs and pictures and
Uh, I don't have those, and I don't like to reflect on those as much because
yeah?
I like to reflect on what I'm doing now,
Wow.
because this is what counts right now, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because maybe some things in the past I wasn't as proud of in my life, and I want to be a better person now each day. I don't want to look in the past very much.
And you aren't that
Sometimes,
person anymore. That every 7 years, all your cells are completely replaced. So you literally physically aren't that person anymore.
yeah, I try to reinvent myself sometimes, I think. Mhm.
Sometimes 30 careers, Joseph.
I don't know if I have 30.
What's next? What interests you that you haven't done yet?
Gosh, my students asked me that not too long ago when we were talking about dreams. They said, "What are your dreams, Professor Batzel?" And I said, "I'm living them, guys. I'm living them every day. I don't know, Daniela. I don't
Yeah.
know what's next.
It's
If
just
if
if
it
something appears, you'll
happens, I'll
grab
let
it.
it happen." Yeah, yeah. I just hope that I can bring more joy and love and happiness to people, and that's what I want to do. That's just what I want to do. I don't care about becoming famous. I don't worry about famous. I have
So
I have famous friends, Daniela, like famous friends, and I don't like to drop names, but some of those people are very, very sad,
unhappy,
very
yeah.
sad people. They're not very happy at all. They have a lot of money though.
That brings me to my other question,
Mhm.
because I've been thinking a lot about the whole social media thing, right? And this career. I don't read my reviews or anything. But the difference between external rewards and getting your sense of self from external and getting your sense of self from internal. You said you had your three foundations, your family, your religion. What was the other one?
Well, I said faith. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have your foundation. So you
Mhm.
obviously get your strength of self from your internal beliefs and from who you are.
Mhm.
How do you think someone that isn't perhaps as good at that could start to learn to develop it?
Gosh, you got to love yourself first. You just have to learn to love yourself. That's the hardest thing to do for some people, right? You have to accept what you look like. You have to accept what you sound like, and then go from there. But that's who you are right now. And so accept it. I know when I work with private students on voice, for example, they go, "Where do I start?" I go, "You just start with you. Start with your own voice. Learn to
Mm.
love your voice, and then let's expand from there. Let's explore what you can do with your voice." And they're always surprised. They go, "I didn't know I could do that." I know, because you've never tried it before. So
Mm.
explore with those things, right? If you're an audiobook narrator, explore those type of things. Not when you're in front of the microphone, so to speak, but maybe on your iPhone. I do this all the time. I just come up with new characters or new voices that I just recreate in my head. And I'm thinking, I wonder if I'll use that again. I wonder if I'll try that voice, right? And go to a nursing home, for example. There was a piece here not too long ago that I was doing, and it's about a guy that's 100 years old. And I said, what would a 100-year-old guy sound like? I'm only 72. And then I remembered visiting nursing homes and meeting older men and going, oh my gosh, that's what they sound like. And then I did the piece, right? So, and I have that. Do you want me to do a little bit of that piece, the older guy?
I do, but let me jump in real quick. I've got
Okay.
two questions I don't want to forget because it
Oh,
moves
okay.
down, and then I'll.
Very good.
So,
Okay.
Fiona wants to know: do you coach accents, dialects online?
I do. And anybody that's an audiobook narrator, I'll just do it for free. I won't charge them.
Careful, there's 350 people in the group.
I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Just let me know. I'll try to work it in if I can. I really want to give back. I don't charge people. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to give you a 3-hour lesson.
Yeah.
But I will coach and help you.
So Anna wants to know, do you think you've been open to opportunity or you've created opportunities?
Great question. I create it. I create opportunity. I do not sit around and wait for my phone to ring. Not happening. Even when I was a professional actor, my agent would say, "You're the only actor that calls in every day." And this is when I was teaching high school full time. But she says, "Guess what? I got something for you. Come on down after school." Right?
Yeah.
You gotta go ahead and create it. You gotta make it happen.
Yeah. So you were lucky and you worked every single minute on being lucky. It wasn't just,
Yeah, but guess what?
hard work.
I was ready when the time came to do the job.
And you were
That's where
working
the
on
training-
yourself as well
that's
to
where
make
the
yourself,
training-
yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
I love that. Okay. You got another clip for us?
Yeah, let me just do, this is the older man. In a couple of days, I will hit the triple digits, proving I'm just too stubborn to lie down and die. I've been struck by lightning, hit by a car, blown up by a bomb, and clobbered by a wall in a tornado. My life is not so adventurous these days, but I'm just fine with that. In the calm of the Lakeview retirement home, where I live, everyone my age measures their life by how long they have lived, how many children and grandchildren they have, and how often those children come to visit. The nurses and doctors and other various staff measure our lives on charts, how much we eat, if we've had a bowel movement, how much medicine we take, and how long we sleep and exercise. Me, I measure my life by how long I've loved. The fact that I can still remember it, and how many people ask me to tell them about it. Today, the new nurse who is tending me, she's maybe 20. She smiles a lot. It's a smile I've seen so many times on the staff. I almost feel sorry for them. It's the smile that says, "I feel bad because you're going to die soon."
Is that your demo on your website?
No, it's just a piece that...
It should be your demo, Joseph.
Okay.
It should be your demo. Please make that your demo.
Put that on there. Okay.
Yes, that's fabulous. And also, we've got the audience crying.
Oh, well.
Not a dry eye in the house. Yeah, I think they're all crying now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, definitely make that your demo. Front and
Okay.
center. That is terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Anna wants to know, do you have a royalty share book that we can buy?
Yes, I have quite a few. Do you want me to just go ahead and put them on Facebook? Or...
Yeah, because it's nicer to be able to buy a royalty share book than to buy a per finished hour book, obviously.
Well, you know what? I don't have enough for 300 people, but I have a lot of codes. And because they're royalty share, I'd be glad to share those with anybody that wants them.
Joseph, you're the offering to do accent courses for 350 people. Maybe we should let them buy the book.
Well, that's fine if they want to buy the book.
You're like me with the tip jar. I was like trying to like message everyone going, no, you didn't have to. Don't do it.
Yeah,
But it's lovely. I'm going to post a thank you on the group page like I do afterwards. And also on this video on YouTube, we'll put your website link as well so people can get in touch with you.
Okay.
especially if you show a talent for accents in this business, you're everyone's best friend,
Oh,
because
that's good.
it's the hardest. It's some have a talent and come by it easily, and some have to work really, really, really hard to do it. So what's your next audiobook? Are you working on one now?
Let's see, I just finished a children's book because I love children's book, and it's called Benjamin Celebrates Hanukkah.
Oh,
And she was a sweet little author, and she has a French name, Virginie Aliel. And we hit it off, and immediately, and after that, she says, "Will you do all my books?" And I said, "Yeah, it'll be fun to do your books." So that kind of worked out well for me.
okay. Can I ask you, they want the title of one of your Western books. Do you, off the top of your head, have a title now
Yeah,
of the one?
Redeeming Grace is the name of
Redeeming
it.
Grace, guys. Joseph Batzel.
It's on
Okay.
Audible. Yeah,
Okay. Um, from the Western series Redemption Tales by author George McVey.
yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
that's like, oh no, I'm thinking Back to the Future. Okay, so back on point. So
Okay.
thank you. What a life affirming call this has been. I'm so glad. Oh, I've got another question. Do you have a favorite book from Fiona that you have narrated, or a book that specifically touched you while narrating?
Wow. Uh, no, no, they all touch me in different ways.
I think that's from being an actor, huh? You throw yourself into each one.
I do. I do become very connected to my characters. Yeah.
Have you ever written a book?
No, but I write screenplays. Yeah.
Kat and I both asked the same question at the same time. So when are you going to write your memoir?
Someone asked me that not too long ago. They said, Joe, I said, look, you're the writer, you're the author. I said, let me just give you the information and you write my book. And so, yeah, but yeah, it would be fun to
It'd be great. It'd be great for your
come up.
grandchildren.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my grandchildren are tired of Grandpa doing all the voices, you know. Grandpa uses all these different voices when he's reading them stories. So
But I can relate to that, because I used to beg my sister and brother to let me read to them at night. And they were like, "Oh God, she's coming." They would literally lock me out of the room.
uh,
You always hear these stories of parents sitting by the bed and reading to their children, and yeah, no, nobody let me do it.
I did an animation for uh, one of these companies that I did it for, and I played a bear in it. And my grandchildren said, well, Grandpa, we want to watch it. So I ended up getting it from the guy that was the director. And I did it. And they kept saying, well, Grandpa, where are you? I said, well, I'm the bear. And they go, I know, but it doesn't sound like you. I thought that
But
was funny.
but the older voice that you just didn't sound at all like you. And I mean, I'm a narrator, so I can usually tell.
Mm-hmm.
Completely different person.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. And that's the mimic in you.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you should do one of those videos where you do all your different accents. You could go
Yeah, I've been
viral.
thinking about that. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. Kind of a man on the street interview type thing, and it keeps switching. Yeah, I've been
Yeah,
thinking
it'd
about
be
it.
funny. It'd be funny. Okay, I will let everyone go and get on with their days. Thank you so much, Joseph. Can I ask you, please, what one thought or words of wisdom would you like to leave with our YouTube audience that are going to be watching 30, 40, 50 years from now?
Be kind to everyone.
Oh, that's a good note to end on. Thank you so much, Joseph, for your time. I'm really, really grateful. I
Thank you,
promise I'll get
guys.
my homework to you. And thank you everyone for joining. And also thank you for Elvis in the variety show. One of my
Oh,
favorite
anytime.
skits of all time.
Anytime for you, Daniela. You are one of my favorites. You knew that. I'm a fan.
Aw, thank you. Thanks everyone. Take care. Have a good
Bye,
night,
guys.
Joseph. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.